Hopping straight into today's video, we have the daily races of the week, starting with race A at Autodrome in the Alfa Romeo, with no effect to your driver rating as usual for race A. And then hopping into the last two grade 3 races of the week, Trow Mountain is going to be today's race in the 911 RSR, the 1X fuel and tire consumption, and then into Mountain Panorama, which is more of a lengthy race for race C, in the grade 3 cars as well. That has 2X fuel, 5X on the tires, and you can race on medium, so that's nice. But it is a longer race and does require a pit stop. Now getting into daily race B at Trow Mountain, as mentioned, in the Ritz car. We're vibing in the Ritz car, starting P5 with a qualifying time of 1:53, which isn't too shabby, still about 2 to 3 seconds off the world record currently, since it's only Monday as I'm recording this. But this race felt pretty chaotic at the end. Finished relatively well still, but I think I could have had a better ending. I was a little conservative since this was my first race of the week, shaking off a little rust. Have the one brake bias towards the rear, add a little bit more corner grip. But I did notice with the new physics rollout, the back end loves to slip out way more than usual. I don't know if you guys feel the same exact way, but through this first lap, I'm just really trying to hit my marks, stay consistent, and follow the guys ahead of me, since this is an A-rated lobby, so everyone's going to be clean for the most part if you're starting in the top 5, unless you just have a really bad rammer that doesn't care about the other drivers or their safety or driver rating. But for the most part, this first lap is pretty smooth. I do have a tendency to accelerate too soon here in the middle of the turn, and I do hit the wall, which shortens the gap between P5 and P6 here, as you can see it going down a little bit. But like I said, starting in P5, I want to finish relatively higher than P5, so the goal of this race for me was to just hit my marks and then also finish in like P3 or P2. Knew I probably was not going to win the race unless I avoid some wrecks up ahead and get up to the first place guy. But the first few laps were kind of hairy on the tires since they were cold. And like I said before, the physics rollout really has the back end slipping out on the majority of the cars, so it forces you to trail brake better and just overall control your throttle. And since I'm on a controller, it kind of doesn't help. But here, finish pretty consistent with the other guys. Hit the wall there again, but just trying to apply pressure to the red 991 RSR as the bumper up ahead. I've noticed with this track the RSR does really well time-wise, as well as the R8, so just picking your poison is the key here, and getting comfortable with the car is something that just takes a few hot laps to get your braking points down. And if you aren't familiar with this track, this braking point coming up is going to be the first rock on the right, down into first, quickly short shift up the second to lose some time, but you're saving grip. And then into this turn here, it gets kind of tricky because you want to take it as tight as possible and then accelerate out as late as possible, because if you accelerate early there, you're going to lose some time because the back end's going to slip out and you're going to wash up. And then this straight is pretty standard. You're going to want to bump draft someone if you're close to them and then follow their line. But as of right now, I'm feeling good in this race. I just want to hopefully be in the mix towards the end. These two guys up ahead are going at it constantly. This entire portion, you don't want to be side by side here. The back end slips out so much during this little section if you aren't careful on the brakes, so it is crucial to just be single file unless you want to wreck or take someone else out. But I'm catching up slowly because of their little get together up ahead, and like I said earlier, just trying to stay consistent. And I do make a move here, bump him out of the way and dive bomb him a little bit, but for the most part, he gets me back in the last section of that turn, and I had nowhere to go, so I just give him a little love tap there and stay in P5, which I'm okay with. The guy behind me is still 2 seconds back, so it doesn't really matter right now, but this is by far the hairiest, trickiest part, as I tap the brakes a little bit too hard, lose the back end there, and then I'm just, at this point, trying to catch up the rest of the lap up to the guys ahead, because they just destroyed me during that portion. Down to second here, keep it as tight as possible, up to third, because the back end slips out because of the elevation change. Down to first, the first rock as the braking point. Come out of here at the end of the turn, braking point down into second, keep it tight, and then once you enter this little tunnel here, you're going to want to slam on the brakes and keep it as low as possible. The guys ahead of me are just battling and battling and battling, so in 5th place you benefit from that because you can catch up. I push it a little left here, get the side draft off of him, make it too wide, still trying to get the side draft and keep the draft for P3. And I was hoping someone would absolutely miss their braking point here and bomb the turn in the close proximity, but I was wrong. And then here, you know, like I said earlier, it just gets tricky. I backed off big time right there. I didn't want to wreck. I'll let him take P4. He had the better line, unfortunately, so I think that was a smart move on my end to take it single file heading into that hairy little right-hander at the end. And then towards the end of this circuit, this is where you're going to want to make most of your dive bombs if you can, if you're close enough, because it does get pretty close in proximity with the other cars if you do it right. So big part of the track for moving people, as well as just trying to gain position. And now this is the last lap, pretty quick race, but for the most part, like I said earlier, this is the hairiest part. I nail it this time around since I've had 3 laps of practice. Unfortunately, the guys ahead of me are pretty dang good at it too. High speed S turns are never fun. And then heading into turn number 4 or 5, I get on the back bumper of this Porsche towards the end of the race, but you know, for the most part, I never recovered after that little get together with him, and he was racing pretty competitively too, so just trying to save the back end there. And with this new update, like I said, it's just so hard to control, especially a rear wheel drive car like the Porsche, and the guy behind me is catching up because I made the mistake. So just trying to minimize as much loss as possible, moving around a little bit to break up the draft. At that stop sign on the right, brake hard into this long sweeping left-hander, and then this is where you gain most time if you do it right, into the S's, and the guys ahead of me are just going at it on the last lap. I don't blame them. That's where I got passed by the green car up front, and he passed the red 991 RSR, so good for him. Good P3 for him. I'm just trying to stay consistent here and stay clean. The guy ahead of me is still 7/10 above me, and then the guy behind me is 1 second back. So I secure this P5 for today's race. Could have done something there, but I had nowhere to go. Happy about it again. Just like I said, P5 is a good spot, and overall could have finished better, but as the first race of the week, I'm not mad about it.